My name is Peter, and I'm going to be talking to you today about derivatives. So, if we want to think about what a derivative is, they are one of the most fundamental terms in the world of calculus. When found, they are able to give us the instantaneous rate of change at one particular point on a given function, and this can be expressed by the slope of a tangent line. So we can determine the function of a limit by first looking at a graph, which we have given here below. So before we find the slope of a tangent line, which we expressed as being the definition of a derivative, we need to find the secant line first. So on this graph below, right here, we are given the points A of f, A comma f of A, and A plus H, comma f of A plus H. So to get a slope, obviously we know this, we want to figure out what the rise and the run is. So to get that, we can do f of A plus H, which is this point here, y2, minus y1, which is y2 minus y1, which would be f of A plus H, and then minus f of A. And then same thing here, A plus H minus A, and the A's cancel out, just leaving us with H, and that's going to give us this formula here for the slope of the secant line. So now that we have the slope of our secant line, we can go ahead and determine the slope of the tangent line. So basically, the slope of the tangent line is going to be the limit right here as h approaches 0. And if you don't understand what a limit is, that is like basically what the graph is trying to do as it approaches a given value. So what is our graph trying to do as it approaches 0, which is going to be, so we're just kind of focusing on this point right here. So to get that limit, we are going to take the limit is pretty simple. It's just the slope of a tangent line, or what am I saying? To find the derivative, we just need to find a slope of the tangent line, and that can be represented as what we said before, limit of h of 0 times f of A plus H minus f of A over H. And in mathematical terms, we represent this as f prime, which we use to notify that instead of just it being f of A, which would be representing a regular function, a derivative is used f prime of A is equal to the limit as h approaches 0 of f of A plus H minus f of A over H. So say we don't want to have to go through this lengthy process to find a derivative every time. We also have something known as the power rule. And basically, the power rule is one of the most crucial parts of calculus because we can derive the derivative of a function without needing to use a graph. We can take the derivative, we can literally just use the function and find the derivative right off that function. So let's look at this below. We have this function, f of x is equal to x of n, x to the n power. Basically, what we're able to do with the power rule, and it states that f prime, which we notified earlier as being what a derivative is equal to, you multiply, you put the n out front, so we take that same n that we had in the first equation, move that here, times x, and then raised to the n minus 1. So whatever our power was before, we're just subtracting 1 from it, and that's going to give us our equation. So let's go over a couple basic examples. First, we're given this function. F of x is equal to 6x raised to the third power. So say we want to find f prime of x. So go ahead right now, and if you want to go find what f prime of x is, you can go do that. Pause the video. Okay, so if you did this right, what we're going to do is multiply 3 times 6, giving us 18. Keep the x. And then what's 3 minus 1? 2. So that's going to be our f prime of that function. So say we want to find something that's a little bit harder. Maybe challenge ourselves a little bit more. Here's this function. F of x is equal to x raised to the fourth power plus 3x raised to the third power plus 4x raised to the second power. So pause the video right now if you want to give yourself a shot, and I'll come back to you in a second with the answer. Okay, so hopefully you did this right. So first step is put the 4 out front. So 4, keep that x. And then what's 4 minus 1? 3. Then you're going to do plus. What's 3 times 3? That's going to give us 9. Keep the x. What's 3 minus 1? That's going to be 2. And then here, what's 2 times 4? 8. Keep the x. And what's 2 minus 1? 1, and you don't need to write that. So you can just keep this as 4x to the third plus 9x squared plus 8x. And that is going to be it, guys. I really appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you were able to learn a lot about derivatives today. Appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Ryan, and today we are going to learn how to calculate antiderivatives. But before we begin, we must first conceptualize what these are. Antiderivatives, otherwise known as primitive integrals or indefinite integrals, are differentiable equations of f prime of x whose derivatives are equal to the original equation of f of x. They are often denoted by a capital letter. In this case, it's capital F prime of x. The process of solving this is known as antidifferentiation, which, you can guess it, is the opposite of differentiation, or the process of solving for a derivative. There are many ways to ask the question, what is the antiderivative of x equation? So one of these can simply be posed as, what is 2x the derivative of? However, this tends to be vague and confusing because 2x can be the derivative of x squared plus 2, x squared plus pi, yada 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 yada. It is simply too vague. To make it more inclusive and less specific, we write down this notation right here. That first part of the equation symbolically represents the indefinite integral of 2x, otherwise known as the antiderivative of 2x. It's just a symbol for that. As we recall, the dx just tells us that we are integrating with respect to x and not some other variable that we can mix up in our equation, such as y and stuff like that. So in short, this equation just takes into account any constant that can be added to x squared. And that's why we have the c variable in there. The second part is just representing the antiderivative in its more raw equation form. Now that we recognize the notation of an antiderivative, we must now learn a process of solving for it. One of the most effective and efficient ways to accomplish this is through the anti-power rule. Let's take the same indefinite integral that we used earlier, 2x dx. And now we already know that the power rule allows us to take the derivative via the formula d over dx times x to the n power just represents the derivative equals nx to the n minus 1 power. This is where we multiply the coefficient by the original power and subtract the original power by 1. Now with the reverse power rule, we're doing the exact opposite. We are adding 1 to the power and dividing the coefficient by the new power. So the equation will have d over dx times x to the n power equals x to the n plus 1 power over n plus 1 plus c. Again, we're adding 1 to our power and then dividing the coefficient by the new power. Now let's apply this to our indefinite integral. Now we'll take 2x out of that original equation. We basically have 2x to the first power. We're going to add 1 to this power. This turns into 2. And then we divide this coefficient by our new power, which is 2. And then we eventually get x squared. Now we're going to add our constant to this equation. This is our bare bones antiderivative of 2x. This fundamental concept of the anti-power rule will be paramount into our later investigation into integration and initial value. Now that we know how to solve for the basic antiderivative using the anti-power rule, let's dive into the process of integration. Integration is just another fancy term for solving for antiderivatives in a more complex equation. Let's say we have a problem that asks us to integrate the equation 4x cubed plus 9x squared plus 1/2 x plus 3. Essentially, we are just tasked to solve for the antiderivative of each term of the equation. So let's get started on the first term, 4x cubed, using the anti-power rule. We're going to add 1 to the power of 3, making it 4x to the 4th power, and then divide the coefficient by 4. This turns our first term into x to the 4th power. Then we will repeat the process with the term 9x to the 2nd power. Add 1, get 9x cubed. Divide the new power by the coefficient 9. We get 3x cubed. Add that together. Next one, we are essentially doing the same thing. 1/2 x, this is technically to the 1st power. We're going to add 1 to it, gives us 2. Divide the coefficient 1/2 divided by 2, that gives us 1/4 x to the 2nd power. For our constant 3, we just have to remember that it is essentially multiplying by x to the 0th power. That essentially just equals 1. It's a placeholder, essentially. So the same rule applies. We just add 1 to the power. The new power is 1. Divide the coefficient by the new power 1. It's just 3. So it's just 3 times x to the 1st power, or just 3x. And lastly, we can't forget our variable for our coefficient, or for our constant. So that would just be c. Thus, the integration of 4x cubed plus 9x squared plus 1/2 x plus 3 is this equation right here, y equals x to the 4th power plus 3x to the 3x cubed plus 1/4 x squared plus 3x plus c. This essentially just means that this equation up here is the derivative of this equation down here, and this is the antiderivative of that equation. We are now going to learn how to solve an initial value problem as it relates to separable differential equations. Not long ago, we integrated derivative equations into antiderivatives right here. And we finished with the last term being c, which represented an unknown constant. What if we wanted to solve for this? Well, I got news for you. We can. Let's go down here. Let's say we have an derivative dy over dx equals 4x minus 2. And we are also given a value y of 0 equals 5, which represents the point 0, 5, which is essentially a y-intercept. We are then asked to solve for this differential equation. So let's first convert this into a more familiar format with a squiggly line. So let's just cancel out this denominator, multiply it by dx, and we get dy equals 4x minus 2. And then essentially what we're going to do is just solve for that, put that in there. Remember that the integral of dy is simply y. Now let's just focus on the 4x minus 2. Similar to our earlier integration example, we'll just use the anti-power rule to solve for our original function. As we know, 4x has a power of 1. And in order to reverse this, we just simply add 1 to that power and then divide that by our new power, which is 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2, 2x squared. For our next number, we essentially have to count it again as a constant, multiply it by x to the 0th power, add a 1 to that, that's 2x to the first power, divide it by our newfound power, divide our coefficient by our newfound power, which is 1, 2x stays the same, minus 2x. We also can't forget to add our constant c. Now we kind of have our antiderivative of our original equation. Now, this is where we can solve for c. We're simply just going to plug this point in. So, plug the point 0, 5 in, place 5 equals 2, and then replace all the x values for 0 times 0 squared minus 2 times 0 squared, 2 times 0 plus c. Then, essentially, these cancel out. We're left with c equals 5. Thus, our initial equation is y equals 2x squared plus 2x plus 5. This is the process of initial value. We hope this video gave you a solidified understanding of antiderivatives, the use of the anti-power rule, integration, and the initial value problems. We thank you for watching, and we hope you tune in next time.